Chapter 7 Halo Abracadabra Street. Ditto was torn by guilt. He was the closest thing to an adult the group had, and yet he had fled the old factory, leaving Stefan and Cosmo to make their own way out. Stefan would have never abandoned him if the situation were reversed. He was sure of it. Maybe there wasn't much someone of his size could have done against Maishi tanks, but that didn't make him feel any better. If anything, it made him feel worse, because Stefan had gone up against the tank to save Mona and himself. But there was another reason for Ditto's guilt. There were things Stefan needed to know about him, certain talents that he had. He should have confessed to his friend years ago, but the time had never been right, and he had become so accustomed to keeping his gifts a secret. In comic books, people with gifts became superheroes. In real life, they became outcasts. And Ditto didn't want to be an outcast from the only group of people who ever cared for him. Lucy and Bond had been christened Ditto by a sharp-tongued girl in the Bartoli Institute. It wasn't a very smart nickname. Obvious, really. Ditto had a habit of repeating whatever people said to him. This gave him a moment to think of a reply. Not that he was slow, quite the opposite, in fact. He just didn't want to be sure that whatever he said didn't give away anything about his special talents. It was bad enough being a Bartoli baby without everyone thinking you were crazy too. Hey, did you hear? Dimitri thinks he can see ghosts. No, thank you. Ditto's suspicions that he was abnormal were confirmed on his 9th birthday. Until then, he had hoped that he was merely short for his age, but by 9 years old, it was beginning pretty obvious that the arrested physical development mutation, which was so common among Bartoli babies, was beginning to affect him. Dr. Ferdinand Bartoli himself had called Ditto into his office for his monthly measurements. Ditto stood inside the great man's door, shivering in his paper jumpsuit. Dr. Bartoli liked to keep the air conditioning at 45 degrees Fahrenheit, as he had said that the cold was good for the intellect. Well now, Lucien, said Bartoli, opening Ditto's file on his computer. Let's see how you are progressing. Stand on the spot. Ditto positioned himself on a red circle in the center of the floor. Bartoli circled him with a measuring tape and cranium calipers. He hemmed and hawed as he measured each of Ditto's limbs, his trunk, and his head size. Another failure, he said eventually, slipping into his office chair. Just like the rest. Where did I go wrong? Ditto didn't answer. The doctor was talking to himself, as he always did. Eventually, Bartoli addressed the small shivering boy. Well, Lucien, I am sorry to tell you that you will in all likelihood grow no taller. Your head is 1/4 the length of your person. By 9 years, it should have been only 1 feet. The Bartoli bug has beaten. Ditto felt his heart sink. He had been so hoping for a normal life outside the Institute. But all is not lost. Perhaps you have other gifts, something to elevate you above us normal humans. Luce, perhaps Dr. Bartoli will open the door somewhere in your mind. Lucien? Do you have other gifts? Bartoli was pretending that the question was a casual one, but his entire body was tense, waiting for the boy's answer. Ditto was only 9 years old, but he was no fool. Years of smart drugs and intelligence exercises had left him quite perceptive. He also knew the importance of the question. He also knew what happened to the Bartoli babies who admitted to having gifts. They were moved to another wing of the Institute and observed 24 hours a day. They were medicated, injected, and interrogated for as long as Bartoli could hold on to them. The doctor leaned forward in his chair. Do you see things, Lucien? Some of the other children claim to see strange beings. Do you see beings, Lucien? Ditto could have told the truth then. Yes, Doctor. I'll see them all around us. The blue creatures. They can see me too. Sometimes they visit. That's not all. I can help people. Make them feel better just by touching them. He could have said all of that, but he didn't. For to reveal his talents would mean spending the rest of his life as an experiment. So Ditto looked Bartoli straight in the eye and said, Do I see things? Well, I saw a werewolf once outside my window. I thought it was a dream. The doctor sighed. Very well, Lucien. There's nothing special about you. As a special favor, I will personally see that you are sent to a state school and not to Clarissa Frayne. You can go. And that was it. No apology, no compensation for being born a mutant. Within 6 months, Ditto had been moved from the Institute to a state school, where he stayed until the age of 16. In all that time, he never told anybody about any of his gifts. His secrets stayed secret until Stefan came into his life. And even Stefan didn't know about everything, but soon he would. And there would be hell to pay when his friend found out. Faustino sent Cosmo and Stefan home in a Maishi Prestige stretch limo. The luxury 10-wheeler car was half the length of a city block and boasted a TV window, fully stocked fridge, and sofa bed. Stefan was not so impressed. He hunched forward in his seat, kneeing his forehead, as if that could make the ideas come faster. Miss Faustino was right, you know, said Cosmo tentatively. It isn't your fault, Stefan. You were just doing your best. How could you possibly know that the electricity was making them reproduce? Stefan didn't answer. After saying goodbye to his old tutor, guilt and helplessness had dealt him a double blow. It was a combination that would be too hard to shake. So Cosmo did what any teenager would do. He raided the fridge, stuffing his pockets with as many snacks as he could cram in. Whatever would fit, he ate. 14 years of living in Clarissa Frayne had taught him never to leave food behind. It was quite possible that the combination of the acid vat and the junk food would have him throwing up for the next day or two. But if he left any food behind, he would regret it for years. Stefan broke his silence, 6 streets west of Abacadabra Street. Anywhere here is fine. President Faustino said I was to drop you off at your door, objected the driver. Maybe she did, said Stefan, but I'm not ready to give up the location of my headquarters just yet. The driver laughed. 1405 Abacadabra Street. I've already set the coordinates to the satellite. Stefan sank even deeper and deeper into his foul mood. The Supernaturalists were no longer a secret organization. There were adults involved now. The corporations were involving them in their schemes. Next thing you know, they'd all have dental plans and pensions. Mona and Ditto were waiting anxiously when Cosmo and Stefan emerged from the elevator. Mona ran to greet them, but Ditto hung back, uncharacteristically quiet, without so much as a sarcastic crack to welcome the returning pair. His secret was fermenting inside him, bursting to be released. Where have you been? Demanded Mona, wrapping one arm around Stefan's shoulders and the other around Cosmo. We thought you two were in jail for sure. Stefan shrugged her off. Set up the parabola on the roof. I want it running 24/7. Mona stepped back from the pair as though she'd been set. We were worried, Stefan, about the two of you. Don't we deserve an explanation? Aren't we supposed to be a team? Stefan almost talked then. He nearly shared his burden, but the guilt and the helplessness were still too strong. Not now, Mona, okay? Just set up the dish. The parabola? Said Mona. That never worked before. I don't even know if it's charged. Just set it up, Mona, said Stefan, his voice barely more than a whisper. Please. The youth stumbled toward his cubicle without another word. With each help, he seemed shorter. The group watched him go in silence. What happened to him? Asked Mona, when the echo of Stefan's footfalls had faded. I've seen him upset before, but don't like this. It's like his life is over. Not over, replied Cosmo. He just has to start it again. He explained what had happened in Maishi Tower, how blasting parasites just speed up the reproduction process. 3 years of helping your enemies to populate the planet. The words seemed to hang in the warehouse air, damning their actions. How many people had their life force drained because of the Supernaturalists? I don't believe it, gasped Ditto. Those blue babies are baby parasites. Not babies. They come out all grown up and thirsty for life force. Ditto climbed on the stool beside the table. It's the energy scrubbing part that interests me. These creatures are part of nature, like us. Maybe we should think about what helping them to reproduce means for the ecology. Mona rounded at him. The ecology? These monsters are sucking the life out of people. You wouldn't be worried about nature if you ever had one sitting on your chest? Hey, come on, Mona, don't blow a valve. I'm only saying we have to find another way. Speeding up the parasite's reproduction process is not good for anyone. Mona took several breaths, then punched Ditto gently on his shoulder. You're right, of course. It's a shock, that's all. I thought we were doing the right thing, actually saving people. Now I don't know. And Stefan? Well, he won't even talk to us. Ditto walked across the table, wrapping his short arms around Mona's shoulders. He's supposed to be our leader, but sometimes we forget how young he is. Stefan will be in the cave in the morning. You'll see. Now, you set up the dish. Take your time. We won't be going hunting tonight. Mona sniffed. Okay. She turned to Cosmo. Sorry about the dramatics. I am glad to see you back safely. Let's go up on the roof, and I'll show you how to operate the parabola. Cosmo nodded, smiling, but Ditto slapped the thermostat on his head. Absolutely not. Cosmo needs to get some sleep. Oh, I'm sure you two youngsters would love to spend the day discussing circuit breakers beneath the smog, but this young man is not properly healed from his adventure on the rooftop. If he doesn't rest, we could be looking at fever, or even rejection. He must be down on his feet. As soon as Ditto said it, Cosmo began to feel tired. Suddenly, his forehead ached, and his knees sent twinges of pain from ankle to hip. Actually, I am a bit tired. Maybe I can come up later. That's okay, said Mona. You sleep as long as you need. Ditto is right. You've been through a lot. I can show you the parabola tomorrow. Cosmo nodded. He would sleep now, even though he would love to spend the days discussing circuit breakers with Mona. After his time in the vat, Cosmo barely had the energy to crawl into his bed. Already, the narrow cot seemed like home to him, something of his own. Although his body was in Abracadabra Street, his dreams roamed abroad, stopping off in Clarissa Frame and Maishi Tower. The Vatman and Redwood warped into one person, shaking a fist at him, a fist dripping with cellophane sludge. Come back to us, the mixed-up man said. Come back, Cosmo. We've got a dark room waiting for you. A dark room full of sharp things. Cosmo woke up in a start, tumbling from his bed onto the pig iron floor. The military green blanket was tangled around his legs, and for a moment, Redwood's insane face hovered before his eyes. Cosmo sat still for a moment, letting consciousness get a grip on his vision. Gradually, that reality overpowered his dreams. The sleep, however troubled, had done him good. The swelling had gone down on his forehead, and his knee barely hurt at all. Once my hair grows back, I'll almost pass for human, he thought with a wry smile. Cosmo stood, pulling on the army-style fatigues provided by Stefan. You could never have too many pockets, apparently. The warehouse was quiet, apart from a croaking snore from Ditto's cubicle. To look at him, you wouldn't think that the Bartoli baby's lungs were big enough to produce a noise like that. Stefan's curtain was still pulled across, but Mona's bed was empty and made. Either she was up already, or hadn't been to bed. There was also something unusual. In absence of a noise, there was as much of a part of the Abracadabra Street warehouse as the curtains. The computer was offline. Of course it was. There would be no more midnight jaunts, no more lightning rods, and no more blue spears. People would just have to lose their life force, as they had been doing for thousands of years. Cosmo poured a cup of sim coffee from the pot, more for the warmth of the mug in his hands than the actual taste. There was another cup on the table, its chrome handle fashioned to resemble an exhaust pipe. Mech lube, said the letters on its face. Cosmo filled the mug and headed for the elevator. Walking onto the roof was like jumping out of a plane. A mere building did not seem sturdy enough to stop a person plummeting earthwards. Just breathe, Cosmo told himself, and don't look down. The sun was setting now, made purple by the chemical smog. That's why we can see the parasites, thought Cosmo. Chemicals and near-death experiences. The trauma awakens the sixth sense, and the chemicals in our bloodstream keep it awake in certain cases. There was a small breeze block hut on the roof, squat and basic, with no luxuries except for power lines twisted through a foam insulation stuffed hole in the wall. On the low roof stood a mic and dish apparatus. It looked like an old-fashioned digital TV antenna, but closer inspection revealed 3 modern chip boxes soldered to its base. Obviously, this was the parabola Stefan had referred to. Mona was inside on a plastic bench, wrapped in a foil sleeping bag. Lightweight and super insulated, the bags had been pioneered by astronauts and made popular by homeless people the world over. Mona's head lolled back against a large cushion, with styrofoam balls leaking from one corner. Cosmo took a moment to study her. She was pretty, as far as he could tell, but unlike the girls on TV, pretty in a real person kind of way, as if there were feelings behind the face. "Are you coming in, or are you just going to stand there?" said Mona, without opening her eyes. Cosmo tried to speak. "Say something clever," he ordered his brain. "It's not going to happen," replied his brain. "You have enough spare cells for one word. Make it a good one." "Coffee," blurted Cosmo. It could have been a lot worse, under the circumstances. Mona stretched like a cat, her wiggling toes peeked out from under the unzipped sleeping bag. "Little piggies," said Cosmo's mouth before he could stop it. Mona opened her eyes, swooping down to spear the unfortunate youth. "Excuse me, Cosmo? This little piggy went to the market. It's a rhyme. For babies." Mona drew her toes beneath the foil. "I'm not a baby, Cosmo. Sorry. There was this boy in the orphanage. He used to say that every time he saw a piggy. So now I'm a piggy?" "Exactly. No, not you. Your toes. How could you be a piggy? You're too..." He prayed silently that Mona would cut him off before he could finish the sentence, but she had no intention of doing so. She sat back, tilting her head to one side. "I'm too what?" Cosmo felt as though his brain was expanding. Surely the plate in his head would pop right off. "Too, human." Mona stared at him. "Have you ever had, a conversation with another person before?" Cosmo shrugged. "Not really, unless you count yes, Marshal, no, Marshal, whatever you say, Marshal, sir." Mona accepted some coffee and thankfully let the subject drop. "Thanks, Cosmo. What time is it?" "Sunset," said Cosmo. Mona peered through the hut's window. "Battle tonight. People with allergies are going to suffer. Did you ever see a movie Sunset, Cosmo? All orange and pretty? Do you think sunsets were really like that?" Cosmo shrugged. "Maybe. I doubt it. They can do anything with special effects these days." Mona took a sip of the sim coffee. "You're probably right." She shrugged off the sleeping bag, leaning forward to a control box bounced on 2 blocks and a plank. A green light winked on the display. "Excellent," she said. "Fully charged. Now we can spot any parasite within a mile of Abracadabra Street." Cosmo studied the box. It didn't look sophisticated enough to make toast, never mind tracking ghostly creatures. "This thing can track the parasites. Surely we can find out where they live." "He can spot them," corrected Mona, "not track them. As soon as they leave the dish's footprint, they're gone. The parabola was invented by the big power companies to pinpoint power leaks, not to track parasites. It operates on the same principle as a platypus's beak. They use sensors in their bills to hone in on electrical charges generated by living things. I saw that on one of those nature vids, the nature vids that Stefan makes us watch as part of our education." The parabola control box was plugged into an ancient laptop computer. Mona booted it up, opening a 3D grid program. Whenever the parabola dish picks up a parasite's spectrum, it logs its position, speed, and direction. Over time, we get a buildup of information. "Could this lead us to where the parasites live?" "No," said Mona. "It is a complete waste of time. They can come from anywhere, at any time. Their direction depends on what disaster they're heading for, and the dish has only a footprint of 1 square mile. So why are we doing it?" Mona checked behind her to make sure they were alone. Desperate measures. We ran this program for over a year with nothing to show for it. We should be out there, hunting them. But even if we find them, what can we do? The lightning rods just help them to breed. Mona ran her fingers through tousled hair. I don't know. What about water? Maybe we could spray them down. There must be something. A blue bip appeared on the screen. There's one. Look. 100 yards northeast. Traveling at 60 miles per hour. Cosmo hurried to the window. In the distance, a lone parasite disappeared over the lip of the building. So what good is that to us? Asked Mona. None, unless we can catch him. She leaned back on the cushion, hugging the foil blanket tight. What we need is a miracle. Cosmo smiled. Well, we're in the right place. You got that right, Cosmo. Abracadabra Street. You know why he's called that? Stefan sat beside on the bench, shaking his head. Years ago, the geniuses who designed Satellite City designed that there would be specific sections for the artisans. That's why you have Van Gogh Arcade and Whitman Heights. All the painters were supposed to live in Van Gogh, and all the poets in Whitman. Abracadabra Street was for Vegas people, magicians, lounge singers, and dancers. It was a stupid idea. You can't put art in a box. Nobody with real talent is going to be told where to live. Stefan picked this place up for his song. He doesn't even pay taxis. Smart guy. Most of the time. Most of the time, said Stefan's voice behind them. His tone did not resonate with cheer. Nobody would be asking Stefan to play Santa in the Christmas pageant if there were even more than a couple million people still celebrating that holiday. Mind if I take over? I need to talk to our new spotter. Mona got to her feet, holding the blanket around her shoulders. Sure, I could do with a few hours in a real bed. Who knows? I might even go out in the daylight, now that we have the nights off. Mona bent low so her face was level with Cosmo's. That was nice shooting the tank. You saved me again. She kissed him on the cheek. Thanks. Welcome, mumbled Cosmo. His face felt as though someone had plugged it into a wall socket. Mona laughed. You'll keep this up, and you'll spend your whole day getting kissed. Cosmo got a sentence together. Maybe next time you'll save me, then I'll owe you a kiss. It was a grammatical masterpiece, given the circumstances. Maybe, said Mona, her eyes twinkling. She walked up to Stefan. Are you talking to me now? Stefan didn't look any happier than he had the previous night. Listen, Mona. Last night, I was in a bad way. My work got trashed. Mona poked his chest with a knuckle. Our work. We're the Supernaturalists. A team. You're right. A team. I'll keep that in mind from now on. She squeezed his forearm gently. You do that, Stefan. Mona ran across the cold rooftop, taking tiny steps inside the silver cocoon of her sleeping bag. Stefan stepped inside the hut, closing the concertina door, and then he sat beside Cosmo. So, Cosmo, how are you feeling? Cosmo shrugged. I don't know. I feel like a TV screen with nothing on it. Blank. I haven't had time to become a person. Satellite City can do that to you. This city has no respect for individuals. Fit in, do what you're told, and don't ask questions. He twiddled the dial on the parabola box. You have time now, Cosmo. Time to be part of the group. Am I really a part of the group? Stefan sighed. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. I've been in a bad temper lately, Cosmo. But that's not you. It's old me. Cosmo did not answer immediately, staring intently at the computer screen. If I'm ever to be part of this real group, you need to tell me. Tell you what? Asked Stefan, although he already knew. Why we're doing this? What happened to you? Stefan's face was grim for several seconds, then it softened. He made up his mind. Okay, Cosmo. You deserve the truth. But take my word for it, sometimes knowing everything doesn't make it any easier to sleep at night. Stefan leaned forward, resting his face in his hands, and began speaking. He spoke hesitantly at first, but soon the words rolled out of him like pebbles from a sack. 3 years ago, I was a hotshot cadet, 15 years old, and at the top of my class. Professor Faustino, my tutor and a close family friend, I put my name forward for officer school. Then one day, it all went horribly wrong. My mother called me at the academy. She needed a lift home from the clinic where she worked, and I had just passed my cruiser jockey test. So I figured I could pick her up at the police cruiser. I figured I could swing by our apartment, then drop the cruiser off at police HQ. Stefan kneaded his eye sockets with his fist. Stupid! A police cruiser is always a target. Always. Innocent civilians are never to be taken in the car. I knew that. What was I thinking? What happened? Asked Cosmo. We were halfway home when the car exploded. The techies said it was a camouflage mine in the chassis. They never found out who planted it. Stefan ran a finger along the scar at the edge of his mouth. I was pretty broken up. Mother was badly injured too. Very badly. But she would have lived. I'm certain of it. I've seen plenty of wounds, and she would have lived. If it hadn't been for the parasites, guessed Cosmo. Those blue devils swarmed down on us like bees on honey. And I couldn't move. I couldn't save her. I just stay there, pinned by the cab. Watching while they sucked my mother dry. 3 of them landed on me, arms and chest, with those big eyes staring down. Stefan took a break, dragging a sleeve across his eyes. The paramedics were there in seconds. There happened to be a unit close by. Dito sitting with the defibrillator. But for my mother, it was too late. I was too late. I failed her. Cosmo thought long and hard before he spoke. You didn't fail her, he said. The parasites are natural. You can't fight nature. Stefan draped an arm around Cosmo's shoulder. Thanks, Cosmo, he said. That's a nice thing to say. But whales were natural. And we sure got rid of them. Compared to the preceding week, the following days were extremely quiet. Mona monitored the parabola closely, but the computer could not convert the sightings into a pattern. Finally, Stefan called a meeting after a trip to see his mother's ashes. He had visited her almost every day since the meeting with Faustino. More than ever, he missed her strength and her guidance. I've been thinking about all this, he said, gesturing to the warehouse and its array of equipment. It's madness, all of it. What did I think we could do against nature? Every time we blasted a parasite, we created a dozen new ones to play on our kind. How many lives did that cost? But we have the energy pulse now, objected Mona. All we need to do is find a nest, and we can do all of that. No, you are right, Mona, sighed Stefan. The parabola never worked. I have no right to put you in danger. He paused, looking each one of the group in the eye in turn. There was something big coming. Mona reached across under the table, squeezing Cosmo's hand. Whatever Stefan said next would affect all of them. The supernaturalist leader took a breath. I have made a decision. From today on, we're officially normal people. The statement echoed through the warehouse. Normal people? Was there any such thing? You never put me in danger, said Cosmo. No one forced me to do anything. I did what I thought was right. All you did for me was to save my life. Me too, said Mona. If it hadn't been for the supernaturalists, I'd be an oil slick by the side of a racetrack somewhere. Stefan shook his head. The time has come for me to wake up. My mother is gone. I have to accept that. Mona jumped to her feet. We can't just give in, Stefan. You know what our destiny is. We fight these things until we can't fight anymore. Tell him, Dito. The Bartoli baby's eyes were downcast. "Maybe the boss is right," he said. "Maybe we should call it a day." Mona threw hands in the air. "I don't believe this! One operation goes bad and everybody falls apart." "Falls apart? That's not it, Mona. That's not it at all. We gave it our best shot, but it's like trying to mop up the ocean with a tissue. Who says we can't be happy like ordinary people for a while?" Mona's face was red with anger. "Normal people are being sucked dry by these creatures. Only they don't know it. You want to watch and do nothing while the parasites go about their business?" Stefan caught Mona gently by the shoulders. "It's not what I want, but we're beaten. We're a bunch of kids. What can we do?" "Maishi is with us now," whispered Mona. "We have the energy pulse and the parabola." "It doesn't work. It's never worked. It took me a long time to see it. But I see it now." "A pity about the parabola," said Cosmo thoughtfully, almost to himself. Mona turned from Stefan. "What do you mean, Cosmo?" Something Professor Faustino had said. The parasites often feed on electrical energy. I bet if we find electrical leaks, we'd find parasites. He rested a chin on one hand. "If only we had a bigger dish." Mona ran to the nearest window, tearing back the heavy curtains. "Maishi has a pretty big dish," she said, pointing to the stars. "One more shot, Stefan. One more try." Stefan's resignation cracked like a mud pack, revealing the old determination underneath. "Ditto," he said. "Where's my phone?" "Absolutely not," said Ellen Faustino. Stefan couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Professor Faustino, all I'm asking for is a data port on the satellite. One plug-in. What can that hurt?" Faustino's face was grim on the phone screen. "The satellite is off limits, Stefan, even to me. I'm only president of research. I couldn't even get a job scrubbing the floor of the satellite." The phone's handset almost cracked in Stefan's hand. "Fine, you'll run the scan. A concentration of energy leaks in the city center. That's all I'm looking for." Faustino consulted the digital diary on her desk. "That's a much better idea. I can get you a slot in a couple of months." "A couple of months? Do you have any idea how many people will be sucked dry in a couple of months?" "I can't help that," protested Faustino, swiveling her digital diary so Stefan could see the screen. "Look at the clients we have waiting. Nike, Disney, Crom. The satellite costs millions per uplink. Do you realize the advertising power of a single broadcast? There's a 5-year waiting list for satellite time. A couple of months is the absolute earliest I can get in, and even then, I'll be calling in every favor I owe." Stefan struggled to stay calm. "How am I supposed to deploy your energy pulse if I can't locate the parasites?" Faustino was unfazed. "Stefan, this entire operation is clandestine. Unspec 4 does not exist. Neither does the modified energy pulse. Neither, for that matter, do you or your vigilante band. What do you want me to do? Go to head office with a story about the spooky blue creatures that are scrubbing energy?" "No," admitted Stefan, scowling into the phone screen. "I suppose not. But what do you want me to do?" "I want you to find another way," said Faustino. Stefan closed the handset. "Don't worry," he said. "I will." Bushka region, past the blockade, Satellite City. Mona steered the pigmobile through the teeming life of Bushka. Technically, she shouldn't have been driving manually at all, but there wouldn't be any police down here to check her license, or a lack of it. The nighttime gangs had been replaced by throngs of ordinary peaceful people. In the pale blue daylight, life went on as it did all over the world. Whatever their circumstances, people still had to eat, live, and love. Stalls sprang along the side of the road like magicians' tables. African tailors rubbed elbows with Asian hackers and European shoemakers. Trade was brisk, and haggling was lively. Cosmo watched the world go by from his seat in the pigmobile. "It's not a bad place to live." "In the daytime," said Stefan. "And it'll be a lot better if Professor Faustino can get her welfare grants back online." Ditto was checking his chin in a small mirror, hoping for some bristles. "Sure. which is why we're doing all this behind her back. Professor Faustino is on the inside, said Stefan. She has to follow the rules. We don't. If the Supernaturalists can take care of the parasite problem, the satellite stabilizes, and the welfare grants will flow. Everybody's happy. Especially Maishi, said Ditto, pocketing the mirror. I think it's very nice of us to do their job for them, especially since they've been trying to kill us for years. Mona yelled back from the driving seat. Do you have any better ideas, Tito? Do you? She gave him 4 or 5 seconds before responding. No? I thought not. You never do. I never do? It's just healthy skepticism, said the Bartoli baby. We can't all be sheep. This entire situation stinks. Suddenly, we're working for the corporations. I don't like it. I don't like it much either, said Stefan. But Professor Faustino is my friend first, and corporation second. We can trust her. Are you sure? Would you bet all our lives on it? The only life I'm betting from now on is my own. Once we track the satellites to their lair, I'll be the one setting the energy pulse. From today on, you kids are all computer jockeys. Mona nearly crashed the pickup. Kids! Who are you calling a kid? You're only a couple years older than us. If I'm old enough to run around on rooftops, I'm old enough to set energy pulses. I'm not here to watch things on a monitor. You will be involved from a safe distance. And if you don't like the new arrangement, stop the van and get out. I'm sure the sweethearts would be really happy to welcome you back. Mona jumped her foot on the accelerator. You know something, Stefan? Sometimes you can be a real pig. They drove for more than 3 hours until the pygmobile was skirting Satellite City's beltway. Next stop, the desert. Cosmo could see the end of the city, and it fascinated him. There was an end to the city? For some reason, he always imagined the entire city was a giant prison. And even if he did, how did people survive out here in the countryside? This was not like the countryside you saw in old videos. There were no horses galloping in slow motion, and no swings hanging from the trees. In fact, there weren't many trees. Most plant life this close to the city had been killed off by chemical smog or factory overspill. Here, the people existed outside the satellite's footprint and free from its influences. Most of the countrysiders lived in one-story dwellings, cobbled together from whatever material was likely to stay upright for the longest time. To Cosmo, the houses seemed widely exotic. After a lifetime of pig iron, it was refreshing to see walls constructed from chunks of reinforced highway bridges, and roofs made from old billboards. Ditto shuddered. This place gives me the creeps. You know they don't have satellite TV here. Some houses only have 10 or 15 illegal stations. What do they do all day? Stay alive, said Stefan, pointing to a mountain of junk in the distance. Over there, Mona. That's where we're going. As they drew closer, Cosmo realized that the junk mountain was actually a fenced-in yard, filled to overflowing with discarded rubbish from the city. 2 armed guards stood in the shade of a covered tower, their weapons as ancient as everything they were guarding. Mona stopped the pygmobile before the decorated iron gates that had, in a previous life, been the entrance to a theme park ride called Dino Doom. Stefan opened the side door, stepping into the heat and dust. There were 2 rifles trained on him from above. You better keep on trucking, kid, said one of the guards, an emaciated specimen with no less than 3 teeth. Unless you got some worth trading. Never mind what the gate says. This ain't no fun park. Shut up and listen, said Stefan, with his usual tact. I need to see Lincoln. Tell him it's Bashkir. And if this gate is not open in 2 minutes, then I'm holding you responsible. The guard thought about arguing, until Stefan glanced pointedly at his watch. Then he decided to go and get Lincoln. If this tall youth wants someone to be mad at, the guard would prefer that it wasn't him. There was something about his piercing eyes, and the twisted scar stretching his mouth. The second guard spat after his workmate. Run like a rabbit, chicken boy! You ain't got the spine of a lugworm! Obviously, the man was fond of animal imagery. Stefan climbed back into the car. I think we're in. Must be a charming personality, muttered Mona, still sore over the stop the van and get out comment. Now, when we get in here, Stefan went on, I want everyone to be extremely careful. Did you ever see those movies about the Wild West, where gunfights get started over the least little thing? Cosmo nodded. Well, the junkyard is like that, except with real bullets. Dito, you're a kid until I say so. Dito groaned. Oh, Stefan, I hate being a kid. We might need to ace up our sleeves. You're it. Considerably less than 2 minutes later, the Dino gates swung open. Men on each side by the strange guards. Seeing them at close range, Cosmo realized that the man was best seen at a distance. Bring that sucker in, Mr. Bashgear. Park her in front of the lobby. Hoo-wee, said the other. You sure are one ugly critter. Cosmo didn't know if the man was talking to the pigmobile or to his own reflection. Then again, he was in no position to sneer at other people. His own head was no oil painting, since Ditto had patched it up, although at least now he had some stubble to cover the lumps on his skull. Mona steered through an assault course of automobile skeletons, parked in front of a porch constructed from rusting satellite dishes. The lobby apparently. Remember, said Stefan to Ditto, act immature. Mona laughed. Act? Just be yourself, Ditto. Nobody will notice the difference. The ugly twins escorted them through a curtain of nuts and bolts threaded into copper wire. Inside was even dirtier than outside. Every inch of surface was coated with a pungent mixture of dirt, oil, and rust. Millions of rust mites flourished in the ceiling, their activity sending rust flakes floating down like robot moths. Behind the desk, constructed from storage pallets, sat a man, clearly at ease in the filth. His feet were propped on the desk, his bare toes being licked by an obese ginger cat. Nice cat, noted Stefan. What's his name? Camouflage, answered the man. When this cat shuts his eyes, you couldn't find him in here with a pack of bloodhounds. Stefan swiped the man's feet from his desk, sitting opposite him. The cat hissed, running along the man's leg to his stomach. I see you don't believe in manners. Manners won't buy you much in the Big Pig, or beyond it, Lincoln. Lincoln's face was gaunt, with bags under his eyes like melted flesh. He could have been any race, and of any age, though his accent was decidedly upper class. He wore a 3-piece pinstripe suit. Unfortunately, it was at least 20 years old. You know my name, boy. But I don't know who you are. You used the name of a friend of mine to get in here. But you certainly are not Dr. Elio Bashkier. I'm her son, Stefan. She told me about you. Lincoln studied him for a moment. Yes, you have her eyes. How is your mother? Stefan dropped his gaze. She died 3 years ago. Lincoln was silent for several moments. I'm sorry to hear that. She was a good woman. She was. From what she told me, you owe her a favor. Lincoln laughed. His teeth were the same color as the rest of him. Perhaps, but I certainly don't owe you any favors, dear boy. Favors are non-transferable. Stefan put his elbows on the desk. Lincoln, 5 years ago, my mother traveled out of the city and took out your ruptured appendix. No other doctor in the city would have done that. While she was here, she saw a halo going up. She told me all about it. We both know that you're the one who has been setting up pirate halos for years, without any permits, safety or otherwise. One call from me, and the Maishi privates will be cutting this place into cubes with space lasers, and the ugly twins here would be absolutely no help. Lincoln was unimpressed. You've met Floyd and Bruce. They're my boys. I took them in off the street when they were barely out of nappies. I believe they were 26 at the time. Stupid as rocks, poor fellows, but they certainly can shoot. As a matter of fact, they have big bolt guns pointed at your head right now. Oh, really? Said Stefan. Well, I'd advise him to look down. Look down? Said Floyd. You won't be trying to take our eyes off of the target, will you? You must think we were born last Tuesday, said Bruce, his voice whistling slightly for the gaps in his teeth. We got you all covered, you and the two juvies. What about the baby? Asked Stefan. Floyd snickered. What about him? What's he gonna do? Spit up all over us? Floyd and Bruce felt two lightning rods being jammed painfully into their kneecaps. Ditto was grinning up at them. You're the one who'll be spitting up if I empty a full charge into you. Lincoln had to laugh. Bartolli! Ditto nodded. One of the lost. Okay, dimwits, said Lincoln. Put away the boat guns before the little one makes your hair curl. Floyd and Bruce grudgingly did what they were told. A genuine Bartolli, said Lincoln. What are your mutes? Ditto scowled. I prefer the term special talents. Mutations, special talents, whatever term you wish. What can you do? I'm the Meg in the group. Healing hands. I've heard of that. Are you sensitive too? To what? The spirit world. The TV scientists say that Bartolli broke parts of the brains that have been laying dormant for millennia. I know what the brainers say, snapped Ditto with unusual ferocity. No, I'm not sensitive. Good looks. That's it. Lincoln lay back in his threadbare chair. It looks like you've got the drop on me, Stefan. So let's get down to business. What can I do for you? I need a high-altitude, low-orbit ship, said Stefan bluntly. Lincoln laughed. Rust flakes floated from the creases in his face. Hello, just like that? No schmoozing first? I don't have time for schmoozing. I need a halo, today and now. What would I be doing with a halo? That would be illegal. I'd have public and private police trying to lock me up. Your mother must have been mistaken. It is a hallucination, perhaps. Stefan brought his fist down the desk. My mother was a spaceship nut. It was her hobby. She used to bring me down to the Cape to watch the rockets take off. She knew every model ever made. She was not mistaken. You're the space pirate the privates are looking for. And if I am, said Lincoln, not that I'm admitting anything, mind. Who else would clean up space? Who else would salvage all those junk satellites? In my humble opinion, whoever's sending up those rogue halos is doing Earth a favor. The world's first cosmic trash man. The occasional pirate TV broadcast is a small price to pay for clean space. Yeah, you deserve a medal. Now there's the ship. Lincoln's face was suddenly deadly serious. Why would I give a ship to you people? A bunch of children. You're not old enough to drive that heap of junk outside, not to mention a halo. You'll grow up quickly in the big pig, retorted Stefan bitterly. We've survived on our own for years. The only thing adults have tried to do for us in the past is try and kill us. You can program the halo from here. She'll go up and back without us having to touch an instrument. All we want to do is be on board. You still haven't told me why I would want to give you my ship if I had one. What's in it for me? Stefan drew a computer panel wallet from inside his new overcoat. He laid it on the table. And what is that? Said Lincoln, trying to appear disinterested. The latest 3D video game? No, Lincoln. It's a piggyback panel with a Lockheed Martin solar panel face and 2 million gigabyte memory capacity. I acquired it recently from a friend. Lincoln nudged the panel. Piggyback panel? Oh, really? What's on the memory? Nothing at the moment. Plenty of memory there to run a pirate TV station. Lincoln weighed the panel on his palm. In theory. But you need a big dish to hook into. We have a dish. The biggest. Don't kid us, Stefan. Nobody gets near the satellite without corporate access codes. You go within a mile without codes and they'll blast you into space. Stefan slipped the panel inside his pocket. You'll leave the codes to me. This is the opportunity of a lifetime, Lincoln. I can hook you up with a panel on a satellite. You'll be broadcasting for months before they trace the panel. Lincoln scratched a clean patch on his chin. And all I have to do is give me the starter car for the Halo I know you have parked out back. 2 million gigabytes, you say? All yours. I give you a link-up chip and you're set. Lincoln was sold, but he fought against it. Do you know how much one of those chips costs, Stefan? About 1/10 of what you will make from the independent TV companies. This could be all lies, Stefan. Maybe you just need my ship and you don't have any codes. Stefan's glare cut through the particle-heavy air. You have my word, Lincoln. I swear it on my mother's grave. Lincoln waved his hands. No need to get all morbid, swearing on graves. That kind of thing is bad form. Well, do we have a deal? Lincoln stood. Rust fell from his clothes like dried snakeskin. Yes, young Bashkir. We have a deal. Stefan extended a hand. Let's shake on it. Lincoln ignored the gesture. We can shake when you bring my ship back in one piece. Lincoln led the Supernaturalists around the rear of the junkyard to what appeared to be a solid wall of salvaged cars. He fished a garage door remote from a string around his neck and hit the button. The wall split down the middle, rolling apart on rickety tracks. Immediately, half a dozen stocky dogs lunged forward on bungee chains. Their lips were drawn back to reveal yellow teeth, and dribbles of slobber swung from their jaws like jump ropes. Lincoln hit another button on the remote, and the bungee chains were coiled in. I don't care how high-tech things get. You can't beat a hungry mutt for security. The dogs were a curious breed, with blunt snouts and red pelts. Lincoln threw them a handful of bones from a bucket. You like my babies? They cost me a pretty penny. I ordered them test tube from Cuba, mostly pitbull genes, some bear too, and a few strands of chameleon for color. The Halo sat on a grill surrounded by a cage of ice. Refrigerator pumps spewed sub-zero crystals into the glossy surface. The ship's hull shimmered inside the frozen paints. You are a very fortunate young man, Stefan, said Lincoln. We had a launch plan for tonight. Nothing special, just a routine troll to see what we could pick up. Otherwise, it would take a few days to ice up the flame. Cosmo shuffled closer to Mona. What's the ice for? Camouflage, Cosmo. The Halo needs a couple of liquid fuel boosters to shoot her the first half mile before the solar band kicks in. That kind of heat is going to show up on Maishi scanners. They don't have any patience for pilots messing about in space. The ice stops the launch site from showing up on screen. Pilots have been using iceboxes for decades. Floyd and Bruce hauled one of the ice panels across with bailing hooks. The Halo sat on 4 blocks like a car that's had its wheels boosted. The Supernaturalists stepped inside the icy sheath. Cosmo touched the ship's cold paneling. This thing flies? Lincoln clipped him on the ear. Of course she flies, cheeky boy. She flies, she soars, she glides, but most importantly, she lands. He handed over the starter card with a flourish. I don't suppose you'll be sharing the purpose of your voyage. Stefan pocketed the card, handing over the Lockheed Martin solar panel. You suppose right, Lincoln Old Bean. We leave at dusk, so you have 3 hours to transfer whatever software you need onto the panel. Do you have a mechanic? Mona was already busy with a screwdriver on one of the access panels. We have a mechanic. Give me 1 hour, and I'll tell you if we have a sheep. Mona reported 24 electronic, computer, and mechanical glitches on her Halo checklist. 24? Said Stefan, rubbing his chin. Anything critical? Mona consulted her list. Mostly comfort stuff. The air filters are due for a change, but if it's a quick one, we should be okay. I did pressure tests on the spacesuits. They all need patching, except one. So you'll be going out there alone, Stefan. Good. No more unnecessary risks for anyone from now on. The flaps barely move, so no sharp turns. Most of the circuits are held together with tape from the last century, and the windscreen is filthy. Wipers? No. Okay. Get a sponge and some hot water. We blast off in an hour. The Halo weighed 14 tons and was roughly conical in shape. The craft was steered by tail flaps and dozen gas jets, 6 of which were actually working. At some stage, the hull had been painted European Union blue, but most of the color had been scraped off during various salvage missions. At the ship's base were 2 fixed boosters that would provide the propulsion for the initial gravity break, at which point the wedding band would take over. The wedding band was a gold-plated ring of solar panels that oscillated continuously as the ship moved. Each panel charged in turn. They moved back to make contact with the magnetic ring on the hull, to deposit its charge and make room for the next cell. In outer space, the Halo was nothing so much as a surfer girl twirling a hula hoop. How far into outer space are we going? Cosmo asked Mona. Mona was running a final systems check with a little help from a dog-eared manual. Technically, we're not going as far as outer space, just past the edge of the atmosphere. What's the difference, Cosmo? A fall from anything over 50 feet will kill you. In any case, we're far more likely to die from a pressure leak than a fall. Thanks, said Cosmo. I feel better now. Good, because you're my co-pilot. Cosmo pulled his combat jacket closer against the chill from the ice sheets. Co-pilot? Mona, I can't even send automobile coordinates to the satellite. Don't worry, Cosmo. The computer does most of the work, and when we get close enough, the satellite will guide us in. If we get the access codes, Cosmo reminded her. Mona frowned at a red light on the console. She rapped it with her knuckle and turned green. If Stefan isn't worried about that, then I won't worry about it either. Lincoln poked his head through the hatch. Lockheed, he said, handing Mona the piggyback panel. Make sure you get a solid contact. Lift off in 10. Mona didn't take orders well. Lift off in 10? Is there a mission control somewhere that they didn't notice? Lincoln smiled sweetly. No, my sarcastic little munchkin. There is no mission control. But my fridge pumps are out of gas. So you go in 10 or the ice frame melts. And if that melts, then you don't go at all. I'll let you explain that to Stefan, shall I? Mona returned to a final check. Good point. 10 minutes it is. 9 minutes later, the Supernaturalists were strapped in gyro chairs, their rears protected from G-force by armored vests. Above them, the ice plates shimmered in the twilight. The ice will break, won't it? Asked Cosmo. It looks pretty thick. Mona's finger hovered over the ignition button. It should, in theory. The prow has been fitted with an icebreaker. Ditto and Stefan sat on the rear. In fact, there were only 3 proper seats, so Ditto sat on Stefan's knee, secured by an extended harness. The Bartoli baby was not pleased. Of all the humiliations my condition has forced me to endure, this is the worst. Stefan patted him on the head. There, little fellow. Shall I tell you a story? Stefan, this is not the time. I may be small, but I can still do some damage. Mona twisted in her gyro chair. You seem to be cranky, Ditto. Maybe you'll have gas. Ditto lunged forward, but the harness held him fast. Let's go, Mona, said Stefan, before he gets loose. Mona flipped the ignition safety cap. We're gone, she said, pressing the red button. With a massive roar, the booster sparked, turning the ice to steam in seconds. The container melted around them. Steam billowed around the Halo, obscuring the view screen. The craft left the launch pad slowly, struggling against the gravity that weighed it down. Power gauges floated into the red as the computer upped the thrust. The ice-covered nosepiece cracked the overhead ice pane, then punched through. Below them, water boiled and recondensed to form a thick mist. Cosmo felt as though he was being shaken to pieces. This was not the holiday flying the way as depicted in TV holiday vids. Then again, this was not a satellite-controlled executive leisure craft. The Halo was a 20-year-old twin booster pirate craft with barely enough memory to power an entertainment system. Nose dipped slightly. This is a dangerous time, said Mona through chattering teeth. If the initial burn is too strong, the strain goes up faster than it knows. Then what? Then we pinwheel. Pinwheeling doesn't sound good. It isn't. The computer throttled back a fraction, straightening the ship. Okay, we're vertical. Now for the fun part. Cosmo, the novice, was going to ask you another question. The fun part? He wanted to say. What's the fun part? Then the weighing band deployed, adding the power of super-efficient solar panels to the fading boosters and the Halo's own lithium batteries. The ship took off at 1,500 miles per hour through a bank of green-tinged cloud, like a stone from a sling. G-force stuffed Cosmo's words back down his throat. Mona managed to speak, though the cords in her neck stood out like bridge struts. The fun part, she said. Blue sky, thought Cosmo, when the shuddering stopped. The sky really is blue. Strands of viscous smog still clung to the windscreen, but beyond that, it was an azure sky dotted with stars. It was an amazing sight. Blue, just like old postcards. The view from the Malaysian Observatory had been impressive, but this was even better, because the sky was all around them. Cosmo even saw a white cloud hovering on the edge of space. A message drawn up from a computer speaker. Gravity 5th, 1/5 Earth's norm, activating artificial gravity. Good, said Mona. This floating around is not doing my stomach any good. Then the computer said, artificial gravity failed. Mona banged the gravity switch several times without success. Oh, great, she muttered. Vomit, comet. What? Asked Cosmo. They felt the contents of his stomach rising. Stay very still, warned Mona. Reduced gravity takes a bit of getting used to. Don't take off your harness. She glanced over her shoulder. No gravity. Try not to move about. You're late, said Stefan. Ditto was hanging forward in his harness. His face was green, and there was a brownish pool floating in the air before him. I shouldn't have had that pizza this morning, he moaned. Stefan pulled a miniature vacuum cleaner from below the seat and cleaned up the vomit. Thanks, Ditto. This is just the kind of job I like. You can be sure I'll be bringing this up again, if you pardon the pun. The computer applied the brakes, or more accurately, the forward jets, starting the Halo to 1,400 miles per hour. The satellite hung on the edge of space like an alien mothership. The satellite's Meishi logo pulsed gently across the dish's concave belly. I read that it takes as much power to run that logo as it takes to light 20 city blocks, said Mona. As they drew closer, the satellite filled their field of vision, and they could make out hundreds of maintenance disc jockeys working on repairs across the dish's surface. They wore magnetic boots and were tethered to the dish's gantry by bungee cords and climbing rigs. Their movements were skilled and graceful, as they launched themselves into space, then snapped back to exactly the point where they needed to be. I'll bet that's not as easy as it looks, said Ditto, wiping his mouth. I'm glad it's not me going out there. The console radio beeped 3 times. Incoming, said Mona, opening a channel. A voice issued through the speakers. The voice was as cold as outer space itself. Unidentified Halo. This is Satellite Command. You are in Meishi space. Stefan removed his harness, pulling himself and Ditto along the floor railing. We read you, satellite, he said into the read mic, just fishing out the access codes. 30 seconds, said the voice. Then we will initiate targeting. Stefan pulled his vidphone from his pocket and searched his phone for outgoing calls. He selected the last call he had made to Faustino at Meishi Tower and ran the video. On the phone's tiny screen, Ellen appeared, explaining to Stefan why she could not get a point on the satellite. To illustrate her point, she swiveled to a computer screen to show him the backlog. The company screen was clearly visible on the screen, and beside each company, its access code and timetable. Okay, satellite. We're a maintenance team from Crom Automobiles. You're from Crom, said the security man, and that bucket of bolts? Hey, we're maintenance, not royalty, said Stefan, trying to sound injured. The 5 p.m. advertisement is skipping, so they sent us to clip on a new panel. We could have fixed that from up here, since it's an awfully long way to come. And no offense, but you guys charge an arm and a leg just to polish the solar panels, and we were in the neighborhood. We have the code, so just light up the port for us. Punch in the code first, then we'll talk about your access panel. Mona handed his phone to Mona. Stefan handed his phone to Mona, who punched in the relevant 10-digit code twice, the second time to verify. Okay, said security grudgingly. You're in. Port 75. Follow the landing lights and don't leave your port. Roger that, said the light. You have a nice day now. The order to follow the landing lights wasn't necessary, since the computer locked into the red beacon's frequency and directed the halo to port 75. The beacon lights were arranged in concentric circles that acted like a target, pointing them closer to the steel walkway that extended from the dish, one of 700 that were attached to this quarter. The Crom logo was painted on the walkway. The ship docked, and with a grating thud, and 2 disc jockeys rushed to secure forward and aft cables. We're in, said Stefan, unhooking Ditto. Get the cables dirty while I put on my suit. He grabbed a suitcase from the overhead locker and disappeared into the latrine. Ditto unwound a sneaky conduit from the loading bay. Inside were 2 cables, a power lead, a cable, and a modem lead. The ancient ship was now equipped for the wireless capability for this volume of information. As far as Maishi knows, we're just charging the batteries and replacing the old Crom video chip. But while he's out there, the bossman slips in the modem lead, and we hijack the satellite for a sneaky search. How long will that take? Not long, Cosmo. About a minute should do it. Any longer, and Maishi will realize what we're doing. There's also the fact that the real Crom team is due here soon. Stefan emerged from the latrine. He was not wearing the suit. It's off, he said. We'll have to find another way. Mona swiveled her chair to face him. What? Another way? Why? Stefan held out his suit. The name Floyd was scrawled across the name tag in red paint. This suit, it's too small. No, said Mona. Spacesuits are one size fits all. The arms and legs are Constantina designed. Stefan sighed. Generally, yes, but this suit is last century, tailored for an individual. A short individual. It's not going to work. Cast off before it found out. Mona popped the clips on her G-vest. I'll go then, Stefan. Even if I like the idea, it's not practical. You're the pilot, Mona. If the computer goes down, which very well could in this flying junkyard, then it's up to you to get us home. Or within 100 miles of it. Mona chewed her lip. Stefan was right. Dito, you've been around the computers. You'll go. The Bartoli baby folded his arms across his chest. The body language was clear for everyone to see, but just in case there was some uncertainty, he said, In your dreams, Vasquez. A case full of growth hormones couldn't tempt me out into that suit. In any case, like Stefan said, the suit isn't adjustable. You put me in that thing, and I'll look like a baby playing dress-up. Cosmo's throat dried up suddenly. No one would ask him to go. He was the rookie. It was up to him to volunteer. I'll do it, he blurted. Stefan pointed a stiff finger at him. No, he said. Shut up, Cosmo. You don't know what you're saying. Stefan's brain agreed. He had no idea what he was saying, but he was part of the team, and this job needed to be done. I'll go. The suit will fit me. I just have to plug in a few wires, right? Mona was not as ecstatic as he thought she would be. I don't know, Cosmo. It could be dangerous. Maybe we should forget it. Ditto followed the head height. Listen to Vasquez, kid. It's not the job I'd worry about. It's the drifting off into space for all eternity. Cosmo pointed out the windscreen. The walkway was barely 20 feet long. I can see the port from here. I'll be tied on all the way. What could go wrong? Ditto thumped his own forehead. You had to say it, didn't you? You're jinxed now for sure. I know how important this is, argued Cosmo. If you go back to Satellite City without the scan, how long will it be before you get another chance? I don't see what the problem is. This is far less dangerous than running around rooftops, and you had no problem with that. I know, Cosmo, said Stefan, but I've learned a lot in the past week. I've come to my senses. Cosmo held out his hands for the suit. 5 minutes, and we have a map of every parasite nest in the city. Stefan gave it to him. 5 minutes, Cosmo. Then we're pulling you in. Cosmo had the world at his feet. Looking down through the walkway's wire mesh, he could see Earth more than 50 miles below. From up here, it seemed damaged. Through gaps in the multicolored smog banks, Cosmo could clearly make out the Los Angeles brush fires that have been worldwide news for over a month now. The satellite dish loomed overhead like a frozen tidal wave, poised to crash down on him and all the shuttles docked at the various ports. There were at least 40 other ships anchored at this level alone. Dozens of disc jockeys were doing exactly what he was doing now, linking their Halo computer with the satellite. There's no intercom in Floyd's helmet, so the only thing Cosmo could hear was his own breathing, amplified by the bubble helmet. At least the visor had been coated with the anti-fog spray, so his vision remained cleared, apart from the several scratches and pockmarks. Cosmo began talking to himself, just for some company. Okay, Cosmo, nothing to it. Collect the conduit and plug it into the port. Attach the piggyback, wait for the thumbs up, then reel the conduit back in. Easy. Floyd's boots weren't magnetic, so Cosmo had to drag himself along the ship's hull, inch by inch. Space seemed to suck him gently, willing him to let go. But even if he did, there was a bungee cord securing him to the halo. Nothing can go wrong. Get to work. Stefan and Mona were at the porthole, watching him anxiously. Cosmo gave them the thumbs up, then bent low to retrieve the conduit through the airlock tube in which Dale was feeding it. He dragged the ribbed tubing out, attaching it to the Velcro strip on his chest. His movements were slow and awkward in the low gravity. Cosmo headed for the port, struggling to control his limbs, while all around him, dish jockeys pirouetted across the face of the dish. The safety rail seemed tiny as he held it from inside his bulky padded gloves, and he checked it constantly to make sure he had an actual grip on it. Inch by inch, he hauled himself along the walkway, his boots floating behind him, the bungee cord umbilical undulating like a slow-motion jump rope. At last, Cosmo reached the satellite. His first job was to attach Lincoln's pirate plate. He slipped a lock-keyed panel from a flapped pocket and clamped it directly onto another. The panels were so thin that from a distance it would be almost impossible to spot. Only 10 more feet to the uplink ports. Handrails crisscrossed the dish's surface, and Cosmo pulled himself upward, trailing both cables behind him. 5 feet now, almost within reach. The modem and power sockets had a flip-up safety cover. All Cosmo had to do was open it up and plug in both cables. Simple, except that he couldn't reach. With the dish's curve, the safety cover was farther away than the solar panels, and Floyd's bungee cable was a couple of feet too short. Cosmo stretched the cable to the limit of its elasticity, but it was still too short. It seemed incredible to come this far, only to be foiled by the last few feet. He turned slowly towards the shuttle. Inside, Mona was beckoning him back. What can I do? He asked himself, his voice bouncing around the helmet. There's no other way. Except to untie the bungee cord, just for a second. The idea popped into his head from nowhere. Untie the cord? Madness! Just for a second, clip it to the rails and plug in. 2 steps and you're there. Maybe, but one false move and you're lost in space. 2 steps. Idiot, said Cosmo to himself, unclipping the cord. He saw Stefan from the corner of his eye. Basic lip reading told him that the Supernaturalist heartily agreed with Mona's opinion of himself. Mona was slapping her palms against the plexiglass screen. She wasn't too impressed with him either. Cosmo used one hand to clip his bungee cord onto the handrail, being extremely careful not to let it go with the other. It wasn't as if he was going to make a habit of this. One-time only deal. Provided he didn't allow his concentration to lapse, he should be fine. A mere 2 steps later, he was at the uplink port. Cosmo threaded his arm through the handrail, locking his elbow. 2 miles tugging at his boots couldn't force him to let go now. He ripped the conduit from the patch on his suit and screwed it into the port. Inside the conduit, a power lead and modem cable locked into place. A light flashed green on a panel beside the port. Contact. Now all he needed was 60 seconds. Stefan was hunched over the laptop that he had wired onto the onboard computer. Is it running? Asked Mona, hands and face pressed against the glass. Stefan raised a finger. Wait. I can't believe he actually untied himself. Estupido. I hope he thinks that this doesn't impress me. This won't impress me, because it won't. Is it running? Stefan clapped his hands. It's running. Now all we need are 60 seconds. Whereas Mona was actually pretending to be unimpressed, Ditto actually was. There goes another spotter. we're gonna have to take down an advertisement on TV. Want it? Crazy kid with a death wish. Robotics plates supplied. Being positive, snapped Mona. All he has to do is hold on for 60 seconds. Ditto chuckled. 60 seconds? The way his luck's been going, it may as well have been a lifetime. I wouldn't be surprised if the meteor picked this exact moment to strike the dish. Which, of course, wasn't all what happened. Cosmo was counted. 58 elephant, 59 elephant, 60 elephant, an extra elephant, just in case. Time to head back to the bungee cord. He was unscrewing the conduit when a tiny tremor shuddered through the entire satellite. Cosmo glanced upward. Overhead, a residential unit seemed a little askew. Inside, people were tumbling past the windows. Another tremor, this one much larger. Around him, disc jockeys were dislodged and floated out to the end of their tethers. The residential unit was definitely not right. Two of its corners had come completely away from the main structure. A third tremor, a monster compared to the other two. The residential cube came away completely, and so did Cosmo. With a surprised shout only he could hear, the teenager's fingers were wrenched free of the handrail, and he floated off into space. All around him, emergency lights began to flash on the helmets of every disc jockey, alerting them to the danger. The residential unit drifted farther from the main structure, driven by the gas venting from its torn life support tubes. Cosmo could only watch and try not to panic. Panic would mean deeper breathing, and his oxygen readout was already edging towards the red. The rescue was fantastic. Dozens of disc jockeys hurled themselves into the void, latching out onto the unit before it was out of range. They wrapped their limbs around any protuberances, clinging on like human anchors. Several more jumped on repeatedly on one end of the unit, spinning it around, so the gas jets propelled it back to the satellite. It was stupendous. These people were space cowboys. Cosmo wanted to applaud. Then he remembered his own plight. Cosmo suddenly collided with his chest. Cosmo's first thought was fleeting and ridiculous. Alien! But no, it was a disc jockey. The man's face was red, and his shout spit up from the inside of his visor. Cosmo pointed to his ears, shaking his head. The jockey took a sonic sucker from his belt, sticking the little speaker onto Cosmo's helmet. Contact was immediate. "The hell are you doing, boy? Untying yourself like that? You soft in the head?" Sorry? Haven't you read the company mail? The satellite's unstable. We've been having more and more of these breakaways lately. Lucky for you, I saw you. What company are you with? Cosmo racked his brain. Crom. I'm with Crom. The jockey rolled his eyes. Crom? Typical. I bet you haven't had more than a couple hours space time. Employ amateurs, save money. That's the Crom way. You can't be much more than a boy. How old are you? 22, mumbled Cosmo hopefully. I drink a lot of water. It keeps me young looking. 22? Repeated the jockey, casually reeling them back to the dish. I must be getting old. The jockey completed a space roll, depositing them both back into the platform. He clipped Cosmo back into his bungee. I'm gonna have to write this up, he said, stripping a pad from a computer on his wrist. What's your name? Just in time, Cosmo remembered the name on his suit. Floyd. Floyd Faustino. Well, Floyd, said the jockey, typing on the keyboard's computer, this is going to mean a fine for Crom, and probably for you. He printed off a card, stuffing it into Cosmo's spacesuit's pocket. You have 14 days to pay that fine, or else your disc jockey license will be revoked. Yes, sir, said Cosmo humbly. I'm sorry, sir. The jockey was not impressed. Never mind, sorry, sir. Just pay the fine. And with that, the jockey propelled himself across the dish to help secure the residential unit. Cosmo dragged himself shakily into the shuttle. Mona was waiting inside the airlock. Moron, she said, punching him on the shoulder. I know, said Cosmo miserably, his legs wobbling inside the suit. Can we please go back to Earth? Please? Stefan was reading the results on the scan. I don't know, Cosmo. When you hear the results of the scan, you might want to stay up here. Cosmo took off his helmet. What is it? He said, laughing. It's not as if the parasite nest is under Clarissa Frame. No one else laughed. Not so much as a smile.